It was supposed to be just another day at Cleveland Browns training camp, pads on, whistles blowing, coaches barking instructions across the field. The kind of day that blends into dozens of others over a long summer. But on this particular afternoon, one moment snapped everyone out of that routine. A veteran defender decided it was time to test the new guy. And what Shedeur Sanders did next, or more precisely, how he did it, stopped practice in its tracks and sent a message that echoed far beyond that field in Berea, Ohio. Training camp in the NFL is not a formality. It is, without exaggeration, one of the most competitive and psychologically charged environments in professional sports. Every single rep matters. Every single decision is being evaluated by coaches with clipboards, by veterans sizing up their new teammates, and by rookies trying to prove they belong at the highest level of football on the planet. Roster spots are genuinely on the line. Depth chart positions shift from one practice to the next. And in the middle of all of that pressure, a quarterback has to stand tall in the huddle and command the respect of men who, in many cases, have been playing this game longer than the rookie has been able to legally drive. That is the environment Shedeur Sanders walked into when he arrived at Browns camp as one of the most talked about prospects of the 2025 NFL Draft. Sanders did not arrive quietly. He entered the league carrying an enormous weight of attention, some of it deserved, some of it simply the product of being the son of Deion Sanders, one of the most famous figures in the history of American football. Critics and supporters alike had been debating his potential for months before he ever set foot on an NFL practice field. Analytics-focused analysts pointed to his college numbers at Colorado, where he threw for 4,134 yards and 37 touchdowns against 10 interceptions in 2024, completing 74% of his passes, numbers that ranked among the best in college football that season. Others questioned whether those numbers would translate against NFL competition, pointing to the level of defenses he faced in the Big 12 and the unique offensive system built around his strengths under head coach Deion Sanders. His supporters argued his pocket presence, accuracy under pressure, and football IQ were unambiguously NFL-ready, that his ability to go through progressions and avoid costly errors was rare for a player of his age and experience. His detractors suggested the spotlight he'd grown up under had shielded him from the kind of raw, uncomfortable pressure that the professional game would eventually deliver in concentrated and unforgiving doses. Veteran teammates at the Browns were watching every single rep. They were curious. Not hostile, but curious in the way only professional athletes can be, weighing up a new teammate with a precise and experienced eye. Would this young quarterback carry himself like a professional? Would he lead when it was uncomfortable to do so? Or would he fold when the moment required more than talent alone could provide? The answer, it turned out, came earlier than most expected. During a team drill, the kind that involves live reads, competitive defensive pressure, and the full complexity of an NFL offense operating against an NFL defense, a veteran defender began disrupting Sanders' rhythm in a deliberate and calculated way. This was not accidental. The defender began introducing extra movement before the snap, subtle shifts and stunts designed to throw off Sanders' pre-snap read. Then came the verbal component, comments directed at the young quarterback just before the ball was snapped, the kind of chatter that is specifically designed to break concentration and introduce hesitation. This is a practice as old as professional football itself. Veterans test rookies. They do it to find out if the young player can compartmentalize, stay locked in, and execute their assignment despite the noise. For a quarterback, the test is especially pointed, because a quarterback who loses his composure under verbal pressure during a September practice will almost certainly lose it under 80,000 screaming fans in a January playoff game. What happened in the opening moments of this exchange was actually a positive sign in its own right. Sanders did not immediately react. He stayed focused, called his plays, managed the offense through its progressions, and did not visibly engage with the defender's behavior. He processed the disruption and filed it away, continuing to operate within the structure of the drill. That kind of early composure is not nothing. Plenty of young quarterbacks have crumbled in the first few seconds of a veteran test, throwing their rhythm off completely. Sanders did not do that. He kept the machine running. But the veteran was not done. The movement got more exaggerated. The comments got more pointed. The disruption was no longer background noise, it was a direct, sustained attempt to break the rookie's focus and expose a weakness. That is when Sanders paused. Not out of frustration. Not out of confusion. He stopped the moment deliberately, with the kind of quiet authority that immediately communicated this was not a reactive decision, it was a controlled one. He addressed the situation directly. He was calm. He was clear. There was no yelling, no chest puffing, no emotional flare-up that would have signaled to everyone on that field that the veteran had successfully gotten under his skin. Instead, Sanders handled it the way a starting quarterback handles a problem in the huddle, with composure and confidence, making it clear that the behavior would not continue to disrupt the work being done. The message was delivered. And it was delivered without theatrics. When something like that happens on an NFL practice field, the people nearby notice it immediately. There is a reason players and coaches describe practice fields as having a kind of collective awareness. Everyone is focused on their own assignments, yes, but no one misses a moment of genuine tension or genuine leadership when it unfolds in front of them. According to reports from those present, a brief quiet settled across that section of the field. Players who had been locked into their own representatives glanced over. The natural rhythm of practice paused for just a moment. And in that pause, the way people were reading the moment, the body language, the expressions, told its own story. Sanders had not only defended his space. He had done it in a way that commanded attention without demanding it. The reset that followed was immediate and seamless. Sanders reorganized the offense, lined them back up, and the drill continued. There was no lingering awkwardness, no residual tension that bled into the next rep. Practice moved forward as though the moment had been resolved completely, because it had been. That ability to close a chapter quickly and return to work is itself a leadership skill. In the NFL, where momentum and energy on the practice field directly influence the quality of the work being done, a quarterback who can diffuse a situation and redirect focus is enormously valuable. The drill ran. The offense executed. The moment was behind them. The reactions from those around Sanders were subtle but telling. In professional sports environments, overt praise is rare. The culture does not reward public displays of validation, particularly in competitive settings where every person in the building is managing their own ego and their own role. But there were head nods. There were quick, quiet comments between players. The kind of micro-acknowledgements that, in an NFL locker room, carry significant weight. Coaches on the sideline observed the exchange without stepping in to mediate. That is itself meaningful. When coaches allow a moment to play out rather than rushing to intervene, it often means they believe the situation is being handled the right way, and that intervening would actually undermine the natural leadership dynamic developing on the field. According to sources familiar with the situation, the overall read in the building was that Sanders had managed the moment correctly. The reason that matters so profoundly goes to the core of what a quarterback actually is in the NFL. A quarterback's job description goes far beyond reading defenses and delivering accurate passes. Quarterbacks are evaluated on their leadership in the same breath as their talent, and in many organizations, leadership weight is actually higher on the priority scale. A team can scheme around a quarterback's physical limitations. A team cannot scheme around a quarterback who loses the locker room, who reacts emotionally to pressure, or who allows moments of friction to compound into deeper problems. The Browns, in selecting Sanders, were not just selecting a passer. They were selecting a potential long-term leader of their franchise. And franchise leaders are not built on game days alone, they are built, piece by piece, in moments exactly like the one that played out during that training camp drill. Teammates watch how their quarterback responds to adversity. They watch whether he panics or steadies. Whether he points fingers or takes ownership. Whether he demands respect through volume or earns it through consistency. The player who earns it through consistency, quietly, drill by drill, day by day, is the one who eventually has a locker room willing to run through a wall for him when the regular season arrives and the games actually count. Sanders did not need to make a speech. He did not need to escalate the confrontation into something bigger. He simply showed, in a few controlled seconds, that he could manage pressure without being consumed by it. That is the kind of quarterback teammates can trust when the game is on the line. Moments like this one travel quickly inside NFL buildings. The culture of professional football is one of the most observant and word-of-mouth driven environments in American sports. Players talk. Coaches talk. The story of how a young quarterback responded to a veteran test does not stay confined to one practice rep. It gets discussed in the film room, referenced in conversations during meetings, and quietly shapes how the entire roster calibrates their trust in their new signal caller. What Sanders did in that moment was not just handle one veteran on one afternoon. He began constructing a reputation. And reputations in the NFL, once established through consistent behavior, are extraordinarily durable. The Cleveland Browns drafted Shedeur Sanders with the expectation that he could grow into a franchise quarterback. On that practice field, with the eyes of an entire roster on him, he delivered the first concrete piece of evidence that their belief might be well placed. The 2025 season is still ahead of him. There will be more tests, from veterans in practice, from elite pass rushers in real games, from the full weight of an NFL fanbase's expectations bearing down on him in moments that matter far more than any summer drill. The scrutiny that comes with being a highly drafted quarterback on a franchise with deep needs and high hopes does not diminish over time, it intensifies. But the foundation of how a player handles those moments is laid in training camp, before the cameras of primetime are rolling and before the outcome has championship implications. Sanders laid one of those foundational stones in Berea this summer. Quietly. Calmly. Exactly the way you'd want a future franchise quarterback to do it. The stage will only get bigger from here, and based on what was witnessed at that training camp practice, Sanders appears prepared to handle whatever comes next. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think Shedeur Sanders has what it takes to be the long-term answer at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns? Was his response in that practice moment the kind of thing that builds genuine locker room credibility, or is it still too early to draw conclusions? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one and genuinely want to know what you think. If you found this story compelling, hit that like button right now. It takes 2 seconds and it helps us bring you more of these in-depth NFL stories that go beyond the box score. And if you are not subscribed yet, subscribe to this channel today so you never miss a breakdown, an update, or a story on Shedeur Sanders and everything happening across the NFL. The story is just getting started. Make sure you are here for all of it.